Well, here we are, day 3 of free agency. We got Jay Glazer coming up. Tell us all the big comings and goings, where some big names could end up, what he thinks of what's happened so far. But I would say a bizarre turn in the Aaron Rodgers story today, but that's kind of par for the course for Aaron Rodgers. But this is bizarre even for him. Now, a day after we find out that potentially he is on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s short list to be the vice presidential candidate on the independent ticket, CNN has a story that they put out today that is spreading all over, and it is really something. CNN puts out a story that is about a decade old, but it says that the person, Pamela Brown, who was one of the journalists who wrote this story, said that she was covering the Kentucky Derby for CNN in 2013 when she was introduced to Aaron Rodgers. Hearing that she was a journalist with CNN, Rodgers immediately began attacking the news media for covering up important stories. Rodgers brought up the tragic killing of 20 children and 6 adults by a gunman at Sandy Hook Elementary School, claiming it was actually a government inside job and the media was intentionally ignoring it. According to the story, when Brown questioned him on the evidence to show this real shooting was staged, Rodgers shared a lot of various theories that have been disproven numerous times. These are some of the conspiracy theories that were at the center of lawsuits that were brought by victims' families against conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, who was sued and had to pay out and will have to pay out in the hundreds of millions of dollars. This story, look, I don't think people understand quite how big a deal this story is when it compares to Aaron Rodgers, because there's conspiracy theories and there's talking about a flat earth. There's even talking about, hey, what I think of the vaccine. There's that kind of stuff that's out there. And then there's, I'm going to go and talk about something baseless, that the Sandy Hook conspiracy was staged. Now, this wasn't something he said public. He said this very privately. But again, much like Donald Sterling with the Clippers, when you say something very racial in private, but it gets out, I'm sorry, but it got out. It's the old adage that if you have a dog that he's behind a fence, everything that says beware of dog, and there's all kinds of things up there, but the dog gets out and bites somebody, the dog still gets out and bites somebody. You got to deal with that. I had the signs up. Yeah, the dog still wound up biting somebody. So this wasn't something that Rodgers talked about publicly. This was a private conversation. But now it is public. And now this is out there. And now this is something that Rodgers has to deal with. This is not, hey, he did a podcast. He talked about vaccines. He talked about this. This is the killing of 26 people, and 20 of them that were kids, that he is sharing theories, whether it's behind the scenes or in public, that, hey, I think the government covered this up and they were all actors. Because that was Alex Jones's big thing, was that, hey, the people were all actors, and that's what Rodgers, according to this piece, allegedly repeated. Hey, these are all actors. There's some kind of okay, what will be okay with what you want to talk about conspiracy theory wise, and then there's this. This is going to have huge ramifications. Like for the first time, I can see the end of his career because of this. I can see the Jets meeting with him saying, hey, if this isn't taken care of and Rodgers has to come out and do something and address this right away, this is not something you can just let fester. This is out there. Like, I can see there being a, hey, maybe we have to figure something else out. Maybe you go try to run for vice president. Maybe something. I can see the end of his career because of this, because this is different. I don't know how this is going to play in the locker room with his teammates in public, that now it got out. This is much more dangerous and more and more serious than people want to realize it is. Because you can say, oh, but this is Rodgers doing it. Yeah, no, I get it. Rodgers has been off the wall for his whole, I understand. This is not everybody's first day. They know this about Aaron Rodgers. This part of it, this is extremely serious. And I can see big-time things happening because of this. Because this is different than anything else that he's been connected with in the past.
Well, we go back into all of the vaccine discussions. And look, hindsight being what it is, there's a lot that was suspect in terms of how stuff was handled, reported, communicated, etc. I mean, there's still plenty of investigations, discussion going on. Doesn't take away the fact that a lot of people got sick and died. Now, in this particular case, it's always a reminder when we're on air, right, when we're in these studios, you always have to, my dad taught me this a long, long ago, the walls have ears. And in our business, you always assume the mic is on, right, that it's being heard. In this case, it's one thing to have your thoughts and to have those conversations in the background. But as soon as it becomes a viable point to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
This has been there for a decade.
Yeah.
Even during all the vaccine
Mm-hmm.
stuff, all the hot debate, because Aaron Rodgers was, for many, public enemy number one.
Mm-hmm.
For other people's, he was a hero, depending on where you were, and that continued. But everybody was talking about him. CNN, Fox News, you name it. He was on his name was on everybody's lips. This never came up. Start to potentially venture into the world of politics. Ta-da. Now you're open game, right? This becomes a...
we go through everything that you did and said. You're on the short list? Okay, this is what we're going to look at right now.
This was probably written and sitting there. It's like the celebrity obituaries for people once they hit a certain level of celebrity or a certain age. All right, you got that on file. Just update dates, last credits, how they died if we know, and it's out, right? And that becomes a statement. Likewise, this, as soon as that story yesterday that we had fun with and mocked the Jets and talked about how he'd still be the best option at quarterback that the Jets have had forever, well, it activated a whole other part of the narrative and his history. And so any of those stories now become part of the public discourse. And so we'll see where this flows. To this point, I haven't seen anything from him discussing it. I know McAfee was saying he was on an ayahuasca retreat or whatever in Costa Rica as this stuff broke. But certainly it's now a very serious matter that he's got to come up, with a statement. It's not going to satisfy many, if anybody. Again, small fringe.
The only thing he can say is that, no, I never said this. CNN got it wrong.
No, but that's it.
I am. That's the only thing he can say.
Full denial.
It's the only thing he can say right now. Is that's it. That's the only thing he's got.
And then it becomes the how dogged an effort are they going to make from a journalistic standpoint to go through anybody that might have been within earshot at this Kentucky Derby event, at any of these other events where he said this or similar things. So, yeah, this is act one of the next part of the Aaron Rodgers play.
He has hastened the end of his career because I can see after today, like I said, this is different. Trust me. This is different than anything else he has said up until this point, and now it's going to be a huge thing. I look at it this way because you know me being a Jets fan, and so I can give you this unique perspective on it. He's a hard guy to root for. He makes it very difficult for you to root for him. Really, really hard. And this story, depending on how this goes, makes it really hard to root for him. If he doesn't come out and say, no, the CNN has, no, I've never said this, this is not, unless there's something from him that is good enough to placate everybody, okay, this didn't happen, this is it, CNN says I got my sort, whatever it was, how can I root for him? It's real. I mean, this is stretching the credibility of I just root for the name on the front of the jersey, right? Because I had to do that when the Jets signed Michael Vick. I'm like, wow, man, really? Okay, and I decided that I'm just going to root for the name on the front of the jersey. Not going to talk about him a lot. Not going to talk about. Look, same thing. Ben Roethlisberger. Did we talk about him after all his legal issues that were really bad? No, we matter of factly talked about things. Same thing with Deshaun Watson. This is different though. This is. As a fan, I go, how can I root for this guy? How can I be excited about him coming back if this is what he thinks about Sandy Hook? Like how can I do that? It's really again, I want to root for the name on the front of the jersey, but he makes it really, really hard. And we know that he's a different dude. That's new news. We know Aaron Rodgers is out there. He loves conspiracy theories. He went on a podcast a few days ago. We talked about how he wanted to play 4 more years in the NFL. Well, an hour of that podcast was dedicated to all kinds of stuff outside the box of the NFL. This is different. This is different than, hey, this is what I think about vaccines. This is what I think about the earth. This is, I'm going to go with a baseless conspiracy theory that saw kids get murdered. And that's a much different way to say, oh, this is something you believe. So I don't know how I'm going to feel about this. And again, he's a hard guy to root for anyway. I don't know how I can go forward rooting for him with this unless this